Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone, distinguished speakers, colleagues, students, and to all participants. Welcome to today's book forum and book launch organized by Yusuf Kala Library and the Faculty of Education UIII. Selamat datang semuanya dan enjoy the discussion later. And my name is Iza. I have the honor of serving you as the moderator for today's discussion. So we are delighted together here today to discuss and celebrate the Indonesian translation of Professor Peter Nella van Doorn Harris. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So her influential books already translated into Indonesia by Professor Nina. And entitled Perempuan, Pembentuk Islam Membaca Al-Quran di Indonesia. So originally this book published in English as Women Shaping Islam, Reading the Al-Quran in Indonesia. So this book remains one of the most important scholarly works documenting how Indonesian Muslim women have participated in religious learning, interpretation, leadership, and social transformation. So as moderator, I would like to give my personal notes since right now I'm working on my thesis and I'm quote your English version of book. Since because of I'm studying on women's education in boarding school or pesantren, so also include the question about women's religious authority, gender construction, textual interpretation, and also as well the relationship between access, leadership, and participation in within a religious institution, right? So this session particularly meaningful for me since I'm working on it, and hopefully, and I also believe that this offer the delightful and valuable insight for all the participants today. So, and I also want to give the information untuk semua partisipan hari ini. So we offer 20% discount of the book Indonesian version. So behind us, they already give us display of the book, and we only for today, exclusively for this event, you can get it for 20% discount. And for the first 5 purchases, you also will get the mystery book from the organizer. So don't miss this chance. We warmly encourage you to take the advantage of this 20% discount, and you can discuss more later with the book itself through after this discussion. So without further ado, we would like to officially open this session. I would like to invite Dr. Shafiq Hashim as the director of Yusuf Kala Library to give his welcoming remarks. No? All right. So we will continue. Yeah. So we continue to your presentation, actually, Professor. So I would like to introduce you first. Professor Peter Nella van Doorn Harder is an internationally recognized scholar of Islam, gender, and Indonesian Muslim societies. So her work has significantly contributed to our understanding of Muslim women's religious authority, Islamic education, and the ways women participate in interpreting and transmitting Islamic knowledge. So today we are privileged to hear directly from her regarding the background, motivation, and key arguments of this remarkable book. So please join me in welcoming her. Please welcome Professor Peter Nella. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for this beautiful introduction, because you already mentioned a lot of things I was going to talk about. But first, of course, I want to thank everybody who's here, who came all the way to Depok this morning, and who is participating in this event. Thank you very much. Thank you to Dr. Hashim for organizing this event in the library, and most thanks, of course, to Dr. Nina Nurmila, because you were the one who suggested that we translate this book. I had completely forgotten about it. I just, when I write something, I just finish it and go on to the next project. And and I don't think, oh, I must do this or that with the first project. But the thing is that I think the why and the how of the book is important to understand the book, because it took me a long time to think about how to put the book together, because the first question was, to me, how much theory should I put in the book? And the problem was, if you put a lot of theory, there's much less space for the actual conditions of that you want to describe, the actual activities, the people that you want to portray, right? So I decided that I would hide a lot of the theory into the text. And then in later works, in articles and things like that, I've talked way more about the theory than in the book itself, because basically what I wanted to do was to map what was happening, what I saw happening. I came in Yogyakarta when many of you were still in heaven in 1993. It's a very long time ago. And I saw around me very interesting activities that were initiated by the women of Aishia Muhammadiyah, Nashatul Aishia, Nahdlatul Ulama, the Muslimat NU, Fatayat NU. And for example, I lived in Yogyakarta, and there was the Yayasan Kesejahtera an YKF Fatayat, which was really, Liz Marcos is here, you know everything about that, right? It was a grassroots activity to bring more awareness to women about their health conditions, about how to improve their reproductive, or how to strengthen their reproductive rights, and how to protect them in childbirth. And they even built a clinic. It wasn't just, an exercise of informing and creating awareness, but also actually hands-on help. And I thought what I saw was so amazing that this should be somehow traced and analyzed, because nobody talked about it. Everybody just saw it as something, oh, this is what Ibu do. Because that is what very quickly think, oh, this is just something women do. And nobody saw that there was underlying an incredible system, a very systematic approach that started, for example, when I think about Nahdlatul Ulama, that started all the way at the top. Of course, Gus Dur, the famous Gus Dur, the chair of the NU, and then at one point president of the Republic of Indonesia. During his time, there were all kinds of initiatives to strengthen civil society, to study civil society. And a lot of the women's projects were connected to that. But, and so, as I observed these activities and movements of the women, I realized they were transformative. And now we are 20 years later. The book was published in 2006, and we are 20 years later. And now we can actually see a lot of these results. And that is what makes it so exciting, that it was translated now. Because somehow, when you are inside a work, you all are probably writing your master's thesis or other thesis, and you're inside it, and you think, this is never going to end, and who's going to look at it, and it means nothing. But then you look back later, and you suddenly see it is a part of a greater system, and the system of the different parts taken together have created something new. And so what I found, what was interesting last week, Aishia Muhammadiyah was celebrating a birthday. I'm not quite sure, was it like, I'm not sure what the birthday was, but it was a birthday. It was not the 100th year, but, and so they asked me to give a talk. And what I did is I traced what has been published about Aishia by Indonesian scholars themselves. And I suddenly got a huge bibliography of materials written by women and men scholars in Indonesia about the topic. And the same is the case with NU. So now, looking back, I see that, when my book was almost the first one of its kind, now lots of Indonesian scholars, including you, are working on these topics and analyzing details of what is exactly happening and how is it happening. And what I basically was talking about in the book, it is like, if you think, for example, about Kartini, right? Everybody knows Kartini, the famous, well, what do you call it? Woman who had feminist ideas about the position of women without calling them feminist and not understanding what she was really doing. But it's becoming aware of that there is a problem. That is the first step, right? And then defining the problem, and then how do you address it, and how do you design solutions? So in a way, when I was in Yogyakarta, I was looking at these first steps. The people had become aware, and they were starting to define the problem, and then they started to think about how do we address that, and now we are really, I feel, in the phase where you can almost say people are designing solutions, and also one of the venues to do that is something what is called forms of networked authority, which means it's not one person who has the ultimate authority, but it's a network of different people, each working in a certain capacity, that create forms of authority that can convince people of following their new ideas. And for example, in the introduction to the book, I am talking about KUPI, the Congress Ulama Perempuan Indonesia, which is unique. It's an absolute unique event, and it has drawn people from all over the world who just, people wrote comments like that they couldn't believe their eyes. And how is this possible in Indonesia? Well, for starters, is it possible? It is possible because Indonesian women joined men in learning about the Holy Scriptures and the basics of Islam. For example, in what used to be EIEN and now is UIN, right? And then, but at the same time, you had these organizations, these ormas, these grassroots organizations, where that are also venues for training, for upward mobility. And so what women started to do was, combine their academic careers with their experiences at the ormas. And I think I see several people here who have done that, right? Like Bulis, Bu Nina also in many ways. And then scaling up their experience and their understandings. Yeah? You agree? Yeah, I thought you want to add something. Anytime you're welcome to get ideas about this, because and then I looked further and I realized it is like people are actors in a model of authority that has different layers. You have, for example, you have the people who are the programmatic translators. They are the ones who study the theories, who study the new ideas, and then basically translate them to their institution, for example, Aishia, and then from there translate them to the grassroots. So you have all these levels of translation. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. Yeah. Well, we were lucky. There was a little vehicle that brought us here. So, and then the next layer are kind of institutional enablers, people who translate the new theory or the new idea into the institutional capacity. Like every institution has its own capacities. And then under that, you have the people who actually bring it to the grassroots. And how did that really become very clear to me? Because at one point, although I have not been in KUPI, I have not been able to attend Kupi, but I studied a lot about Kupi, and I know a lot of people working on Kupi. Because for those of you, who of you does not know what Kupi was, what these congresses were? Who of you doesn't say, I'm a bit fuzzy about it. I don't know them very well. Who knows? You all know it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So several of you know it. Because the thing is, what does Kupi do? Kupi is like a network, a platform, right? But what does it do? It consolidates the existing discourses. And maybe you can say it's more towards the NU, but people from other groups are also participate, right? And it makes the long-standing practices visible. It makes them visible on a national and even an international level. And then it activates existing networks. And how did I realize that? When I was asked to write an article for a special journal issue of a Muslim feminist journal in South Africa about Kupi, I contacted dozens and dozens of participants that were from outside Indonesia. How had Kupi affected them? I'd asked them, how did Kupi affect you? And what did you take home, and how are you applying it in your own country? And then I only got answers that were something like, we are actually using it, we have ideas how to use it, from Malaysia and Thailand. In Egypt, the person said, I've no idea. And so for many places, people said, I was very inspired, I loved the idea, but I have no idea how to translate this to my own environment. And in many ways, that is what this book is about. It was the beginning of mapping, of how do people set up organizations that allow for these forms of networked authority that then can, in different layers, be translated to different parts of society, and at the end can also be scaled up into something like Kupi, that what do you call it? That makes it all visible, because what Kupi made visible, you get the impression it's very NU related, but what it makes visible is that these women and men working in these different organizations are somehow all interconnected in all kinds of ways and all work together. Although they each do it according to a certain identity, and I will not go into that identity, right? But when I did the research for this book, there were some examples of where you could see this is Muslimat NU and this is Aishia Muhammadiyah very clearly. And there was, you know, it was, well, let me say it this way. Let me only speak about the Muslimat NU. I was always invited to stay the night and stay with everybody and stay as long as I wanted. That did not happen with Aishia. And it's not because they were not welcoming, but it was more that they had closed meetings and non-closed meetings. Muslimat NU was always open. And always open, you know, even I'm a foreigner, as you might have noticed by now. I'm not Indonesian, and I am not a Muslim. And my best way of entrance in those days was that I had a baby. That helps. And, you know, the people loved it when I came and brought my child, which I had to because she had to be with me. But that was not the only thing. They were interested in discussing things with me. And not just discussing it after I left. You see what I mean? It was a certain openness. But that does not, I don't want to say, that should not reflect negatively on the other organization, because each organization has its own approaches that it feels comfortable with, and then in the end will come out with the materials as they wish to. How much time do I still have? So basically, you know, no, well, I wanted to keep it short because there's also that we also would have time for some discussion. But so in a way, the women created something like what I call a central institutional field, within which the debates that have emerged such as those associated with Kupi, and those are, for example, about child marriage, environmental issues, women's health. It provides platforms for these discussions. But one thing has to be noted. These discussions are not easy, and they don't really fit the media age easily. They do not, you cannot, you can put them on TikTok, but you cannot put them on TikTok like an easy 3-minute way out, a black-white, yes, no. It is really going deeper into the discussions, into the literature, into what I always call the holy sources, the holy scriptures, and also in engaging with the different debates. And that is what happens in Indonesia. And that is where these women's organizations that are described in this book, they created the platforms for that. And from these platforms, then you had different individual projects. For example, one project that the Oslo Coalition, because I'm here with two people who are very prominent in the Oslo Coalition, which is a cooperation between, what do you call it? It's an organization that seeks cooperation between academics and practitioners, and in the religious field. And we have had several projects in Indonesia, and one of them was Rumah Kitab from Bolis Marcus, which has basically also continued all these debates about child marriage, about environmental issues, and we cannot go into that, it would be too much, but really focused on creating materials, modules, teaching materials, discussion materials for the grassroots. And so all this, to me, is somehow comes together in these organizations, and then that just goes out of them again, and so that it can reach a larger public, and that it can find a way to be transmitted and translated. But like I say, the book was published 20 years ago. And so to me, the most exciting thing is to see what has happened since. All the things that have happened since that have become possible. For example, we now have an English Islamic university where people study and write in English. And so a way to connect to the rest of the world and so maybe these conversations will finally reach Egypt, and will finally reach Morocco and all the other places in the Muslim world, and maybe will make people think there, how can I apply this here? But I started here with the Indonesian environment and tried to explain that. And I must say, one of the, to me, encouraging issues of the book was that it has been used in many college courses in America and in Europe as well. Many teachers of Islam used it, maybe sometimes just a few chapters, to show that you cannot think about Islamic women as just severely suppressed, terribly, disappointed in life, frustrated. That's not the case. There's many different models, and this also showed them a model as it was being developed in Indonesia. So the book has been, actually in America, it has been studied a lot. And I've often had comments about it until today. People ask me to come and talk about it or join them via Zoom in classes. So it is right now time for the next book. And one of you should be writing that. And because it takes a lot of time. I must tell you, I would get up and go to the pengajian, pengajian pagi, pengajian sore, pengajian malam. I was at every pengajian, and I would go to every activity and every and Bulis, that whenever I could, I joined you, and I listened. I was constantly listening and taking notes and asking people. And so I want to end my part of the presentation with thanking all of you here today. Some of you are here, including Pa Hashim, with being so patient in answering my questions all the time. I always have questions. I always want people to explain the situation. because there's so much going on in Indonesia, and if you want to write about something, even if you are an insider, you have to really understand what's going on if you want it to be acceptable to the people that you are describing, and I hope it was acceptable. Thank you so much, and as I say, thank you so much to Bunina for translating it.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ternila. So this is really insightful from you, and because actually there is a lot of things that I would like to discuss more, but about we have to also listen from Professor Nina. So maybe the one that I want to add, since you are asking about who is the one who first heard about Kupi or so on. So I have the experience about it since I part of the westernmost point of Indonesia, Aceh, if you know. So regarding my work right now on my thesis, I also have the question about Kupi there. And surprisingly, all of the society or communities didn't know about Kopi, since they also have their own organization or so on. But that's really interesting since Kopi itself has a largely impactful way in terms of national level. Yeah, that's really interesting for me, actually. So next presentation from Professor Nina, I would like to invite her. So she is my dean also here in UIII, the Dean of Faculty of Education. And for me, she is my supervisor, who right now I'm work on women's education in Islamic boarding school or pesantren. So she will presents her presentation in terms of this book, the Indonesian translation of Professor Peter Nila books. So welcome Prof. Nina, and let's join me to welcoming her. So Prof. Nina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Iza, the moderator. She's my student. When I need moderator, I was thinking, who is going to be moderator? Then I'm thinking about her. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much all for coming. I know who are from non-triple IU, outside triple IU. Okay, I don't know where are you coming from, but I plan to speak in Indonesian, but I have my PowerPoint in English because we have a guest, and also I see my student from Afghanistan, not from Indonesia. Maybe I can speak mix, yeah, Indonesian and English, yeah. But first I would like to have acknowledgement. Ini arahnya kemana? Ke sini. Okay, so I would like to thank Associate Professor Shafiq Hasim, who have facilitated us. Friday is work from home day. I'm glad that he could finally agree to facilitate us in today book launch, and also to all the staff who usually work at home. Now you are here today, even though it is Friday. Of course, I would like to thank Professor Dali van der Harder for allowing me to translate her book. Also for Dr. Leda Larsen and Rita, who come from a long way from Oslo to be here. Also to Mbak Liz and Teh Julia. They are both senior Indonesian feminists that I learned from. Well, Iza, thank you, and then for all the participants of this event. So I will not talk about all the things about the books because, well, you can buy the book over there, yeah, in the special price, 20%, yeah. So I really encourage you. So this is just like the iceberg of the content of the book that you might enjoy it, yeah, in your daily life. Sorry, this is. So I would like to have a reflection. I did research on polygamy. Jadi pembicaraan saya sebagai diskusan itu tidak terbatas kepada isi buku saja, ya. Karena kalau isi buku nanti bisa membaca sendiri ya. Saya tidak akan bisa menjelaskan buku ini dalam waktu 10 atau 15 menit. Ini buku yang benar-benar bagus dan saya sangat merekomendasikan untuk dibaca gitu ya. Dan saya sendiri ya sebagai translator itu sepertinya saya sudah terlewat terlewat satu slide. Jadi translation itu membuat saya going deep into the book gitu ya. Beda dengan hanya sekedar membaca gitu. Jadi kita tuh seperti masuk di dalamnya gitu. Saya pernah juga kan saya sudah menjadi translator di Mizan dari sejak tamat S2 ya tahun 97. Jadi sudah banyak sekali buku yang saya translate itu sampai pernah saya mentranslate buku tentang In Search of Muhammad itu ya. Dan bagaimana orang-orang orientalis itu misalnya menjelekkan Nabi Muhammad yang sangat-sangat buruk sehingga kemudian saya sampai saking gak teganya itu saya keep a distance dulu gitu loh dari menerjemahkan itu mungkin sampai seminggu karena saya tidak tahan gitu ya dengan cercaan-cercaan mereka kepada Nabi Muhammad. Itu begitu dalamnya ya ketika kita mentranslate buku. Jadi buku ini sangat bagus karena dia first hand data. Jadi Ibu Nelly ini tadi kan sudah cerita dia datang ke pengajian-pengajian malam, siang gitu ya, mendengarkan dan dia mencatat dengan baik tentang Aisyah dan Aisyah dan Muslimat NU gitu ya. Dan bagaimana dia betul-betul seperti judul bukunya itu kan ini diterbitkan 2006 ya, Women Shaping Islam. Jadi para perempuan pembentuk Islam. Jadi bagaimana Islam itu diinterpretasikan dan saya melihat ada proses misalnya karena saya meneliti buku melakukan penelitian misalnya tentang poligami ya, saya bawa bukunya ya. Ini buku saya ini terbitan dari disertasi saya ini terbitan tahun 2009 dan karena saya membahas tentang buku ini gitu ya, jadi saya melakukan banyak riset tentang bagaimana pergulatan para aktivis perempuan dalam memperjuangkan Undang-Undang Perkawinan 1974 ya. Dalam hal isu poligami itu yang namanya Perempuan NU dan Muhammadiyah ya Aisyah dengan Watayah Muslimah itu mereka satu suara bahwa poligami itu dibolehkan dalam Islam. Karena mereka itu takut gitu ya berbeda pendapat dengan para laki-lakinya. Jadi mereka itu memang masih memposisikan mereka itu sebagai ya subordinate of the men. Jadi apapun yang laki-laki katakan, mereka ikut aja. Sehingga kemudian pada akhirnya itu dianggap sebagai pendapat representasi Islam bahwa poligami itu boleh asal adil. Saya kira di Indonesia itu hampir semua muslim itu diindoktrinasi dari sejak kecil sampai besar bahwa dalam Islam poligami itu boleh asal adil. Sehingga kemudian kalau misalnya ada pendapat lain, misalnya yang mengharamkan gitu ya, itu orang langsung irritated, wah itu dari barat gitu ya, ya. Padahal itu Muhammadiyah itu didirikan, itu idenya itu dari Muhammad Abduh. Ya kan waktu itu kan Ahmad Dahlan ke Mesir dan kemudian dia sangat kagum terhadap ide-idenya Muhammad Abduh. Tapi kayaknya Muhammadiyah itu nggak pernah merujuk gitu apa pendapat Abduh tentang poligami. Misalnya Abduh itu dalam hal poligami sangat tegas karena memang dia itu dan dia kan tidak menikah, dia anak dari istri pertama yang dipoligami oleh ayahnya. Dan dia itu sampai mengatakan begini dalam hal poligami. Ta'addudu zaujah muharramun qat'an indal khawf li adamil adli. Jadi begitu tegas dia mengharamkan poligami, bahwa poligami itu diharamkan karena khawatir tidak adanya keadilan. Tapi itu orang Muhammadiyah nggak pernah merujuk kepada pemikiran Abduh tentang ini. Karena seperti waktu sebelum 1974 semua satu suara tentang poligami. Tapi itu berubah setelah tahun 90-an ke sini. Ketika para perempuan muslim is more educated and more critical. Ya, mereka sudah mulai jadi feminis gitu ya. Ini saya agak loncat. Oke, saya mau sedikit bicara juga tentang apa sih perbedaan Muhammadiyah dan NU? Kalau di wacana English discourse gitu kan, Muhammadiyah is called modernist, kemudian NU is traditionalist. Itu karena memang orang-orang Muhammadiyah itu gimana ya, saya juga nggak tahu kenapa dikatakan seperti itu, tapi apa namanya olahan maksud itu geraknya itu memang kebanyakan orang Muhammadiyah itu di kota, ya mereka bangun rumah sakit, sekolah-sekolah, ya kan, panti asuhan seperti itu. Sementara NU itu grassrootsnya banyak di desa-desa, membangun pesantren, ya di pesantren kebanyakan seperti itu. Dan mereka itu apa muhafadhoh liqodimil apa? Ya pokoknya dia memelihara. Nah itulah pokoknya dia memelihara warisan intelektual, ya, memelihara wacana intelektual masa lalu. Ya, ketika mereka berijtihad. Jadi mereka itu kalau sebelum berijtihad itu pasti mereka melihat apa namanya intelektual lama dulu, baru kemudian kami ke ijtihad. Tapi kalau Muhammadiyah itu mau direct gitu ya, mereka langsung melihat Quran dan hadis gitu ya. Tapi ada kecenderungan sebetulnya yang tahun 90-an itu saya melihat bahwa NU yang dibilang tradisionalis, justru yang NU-nya itu, para young generation of NU-nya itu, mereka sangat progresif. Ya, saya sebutkan saja yang generation of NU itu ya Mbak Liz, Pak Syafiq yang ada di sini, kan itu kan tahun 90-an, sekarang udah 2026, so it is like 30 years ago they are young. Ya, jadi mereka itu punya pemikiran-pemikiran yang kritis ya terhadap terutama patriarchal interpretation of the Quran gitu ya. Saya melihat gitu ya. Dulu dia sangat-sangat talkative, maksudnya Pak Syafiq Hasyim ini sangat progresif feminis, menerbitkan buku misalnya hal-hal yang tidak terpikirkan tentang perempuan di apa namanya di Mizan gitu ya. You are like now like hidden, no longer appear as a feminist. I don't know why you stop writing about women ya. Oke. Oh ya, saya lupa ini. Ya itu saya cerita itu ya tentang perdebatan tentang poligami before 1970s. So all like NU and Muhammadiyah women like agree on not to prohibit polygamy. Ya. But after that, misalnya from Muhammadiyah, Profesor Ruhaini Zuhayatin, she clearly said it is prohibited in Islam. Also among NU, people who are involved in KUPI, Indonesian Ulama Congress, they can said clearly that it is prohibited without fear of being blamed that you are westernized ya. Westernized, yeah, okay, yeah. So I have already explained about the difference between NU and Muhammadiyah women before and after 1990s. So why are they different? So now I would like to explain about they different, ya. Dengan melihat apa sih yang membuat para feminis ini berbeda gitu ya. Para perempuan aktivis NU dan apa namanya Muhammadiyah ini berbeda. Nah ini saya ingin melihat bagaimana pengaruh feminisme dan gender datang ke Indonesia. Misalnya ya some Indonesian study in the West like Julia, Mbak Liz also studied in the West ya. And then they brought their ideas to Indonesia. You know that Julia Suryakusuma is well known for state egoism ya. Her criticism to Suharto's construction of women. Kemudian ada Kalyana Mitra yang didirikan pada tahun 1985. Jadi dia itu perpustakaannya banyak sekali menyediakan buku-buku ya bahasa Inggris yang kita bisa akses. Oh ya, dan Kalyana Mitra itu sudah menghibahkan buku-buku yang dulu saya akses tahun 90-an itu, sekarang sudah di sini di lantai 6 ya. Karena UI 3 sudah membuat MOU dengan Kalyana Mitra. So if you need access to feminist readings, you can go to level 6 of this library ya. Ya. Dan tahun 1990-an itu saya baru tamat S1 itu banyak training-training gender yang ditawarkan di pusat studi wanita ya. Sehingga kemudian kita semua paham kan knowing gender is about critical thinking to differentiate between what is natural and cultural gitu ya. Jadi kemudian setelah itu pada setelah tahun 95 itu muncul banyak buku-buku ya yang merupakan anak dari pengaruh global feminis ya, seperti Aminah Wadud, Asghar Ali Engineer. So from Indonesia there have been like many publications seperti yang ditulis oleh Mas Dar F. Masudi waktu itu bekerja dengan Mbak Alis Marcos ya di namanya P3M Fikfun Nisa dan Syafiq Hasib ya. Ya, itu buku sangat progresif sekali dan dia orang NU gitu ya dulu. Jadi NU duluan yang lebih progresif dalam hal gender issues gitu ya. Dan itu surprise me because of the label between modernist and traditionalist. It's supposed that modernist first who become feminist, but then it is traditionalist first, like the young NU, like Fakihuddin also. Kiai Hussein ya, and that's the birth, the initial of the birth of the KUPI ya, like buku Nasaruddin Umar, Zaituna Subhan, Nurjana Ismail dan lain sebagainya, termasuk ya buku saya itu adalah anak-anak dari pengaruh global Muslim feminis ya. Jadi kalau misalnya saya mengkategorisasi Indonesian feminism, saya bisa kategorikan kepada 3 sebagaimana Azakara kategorisasi feminisme itu kepada Islamis, feminis, sekuler, and Muslim feminis. Kalau Islamis itu sebenarnya mereka tidak mau dilabeli feminis ya, karena mereka itu aktif di ruang publik, tapi mereka masih mengakui misalnya perempuan itu imamnya laki-laki itu imamnya perempuan, kemudian yang kewajiban utama perempuan itu ya di rumah seperti itu. Jadi mereka masih mendukung status quo pembagian gender yang patriarkis gitu, dan mereka itu ya kalau saya kategorikan mereka itu seperti misalnya aktivis PKS misalnya ya, perempuan PKS seperti itu. Kemudian kalau secular feminis, maybe Julia can be called secular feminist karena dia tidak menggunakan ayat-ayat suci Al-Quran untuk argue kadang-kadang ya, tapi mostly you are using constitutional like SIDO, yes ya. Jadi yang dijadikan dasar itu pokoknya yang secular laws gitu, bukan Al-Quran ya. Nah yang feminis Muslim feminis ini adalah yang dibahas oleh Ibu Nelly itu, di dalamnya adalah para Aisyah muslimat yang mereka tuh tahu bahasa Arab, tahu Islam, dan mereka mereinterpretasi ajaran Islam kontekstualis based on women's experiences in Indonesia. Kenapa? Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, I claim myself as, sorry I left behind my PowerPoint, but as Nelly said, she discussed also about KUPI, the current development. So I close also my presentation with the current development about Kongres Ulama Perempuan Indonesia. Jadi Kongres Ulama Perempuan Indonesia itu sebetulnya tuh bibitnya itu dari Rahima. Rahima itu punya program kader ulama perempuan gitu ya. Nah kemudian karena sudah beberapa angkatan, akhirnya mereka mau mengumpulkan para alumni ini dalam sebuah kongres, tapi kemudian idenya jadi bola liar, kemudian menyatukan, dan KUPI itu di dalamnya sebagaimana penyelenggaranya itu salah satunya Alimat itu adalah ulama perempuan itu akhirnya kita berkumpul banyak orang, dan itu di Cirebon pada tahun 2022 yang pertama, kemudian 2017 ya, 2017 di Cirebon, kemudian 2022 yang kedua, dan kita akan menyelenggarakan kembali 2027. Sebetulnya saya juga sedang menyiapkan buku yang harusnya sudah siap nih 2027, tapi karena pekerjaan saya banyak jadi agak sedikit tersingkirkan untuk editing bukunya. Semoga segera muncul. Dan yang membedakan antara ulama perempuan dengan ulama laki-laki, isu-isu yang dibahas oleh ulama perempuan itu yang kira-kira tidak dibahas oleh laki-laki, misalnya seperti sexual violence gitu ya, child marriage gitu ya, karena itu perempuan yang menjadi victims gitu ya, jadi korban. Kemudian environmental destruction, karena ketika ada tambang, perusakan lingkungan, itu yang paling terpengaruh secara negatif itu adalah perempuan seperti itu. Ya, dan saya sekarang melihat bahwa karena mungkin para perempuan ini sekarang sudah educated gitu ya, mereka being confident Muslim feminis gitu ya, yang mereka sudah bisa memproduksi ilmu pengetahuan, dan kemudian ya mereka bisa memproduksi ilmu pengetahuan berdasarkan pengalaman mereka sebagai perempuan. Dan saya bangga menjadi alhamdulillah dirangkul oleh mereka dan menjadi salah satu dari mereka. Semoga Anda yang di sini juga bisa mengikuti jejak apa yang sudah dilakukan oleh para Perempuan Pembentuk Islam. We decide our future and let's become like the supporter of gender justice. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ya, baik. Terima kasih banyak Profesor Nina. Jadi setelah mendengar penjelasan Prof ini ada banyak hal sebenarnya yang mau kita jemput. Tapi kita beri kesempatan kepada Mbak Lis. Mau? Nggak usah. Tapi menarik Mbak Lis ini masuk kategori Muslim atau Islami feminis.
Muslim feminis nggak mungkin Islam.
Oh nggak mungkin.
Oh ya silakan. Speak English. Okay, speak English. Okay, sorry. General.
The important thing that we didn't discuss about the situation, this progress, is even Nina or Bu Nelly, is about the convergence between feminist secular and feminist Muslim. It doesn't only happen in Indonesia. Like Julia and I, we work together in the field, in the rubber plantation, and I learned a lot from Julia about feminism, even the theory about gender. But Julia, vice versa, learned about the Muslim philosophy and Muhammadiyah, something like that. That I think the advantage. And the second one, even though I was born in Muslim family, I was born in Muhammadiyah, but grew up in NU, with NU. So I learned from both. And as a feminist, I learned as well from NU and from Muhammadiyah. So it just only happened, I think, in Indonesia. I didn't see it in Malaysia even. So sometimes I was wondering, this is the what do we call? The advantage, but also this is the hadiah, yeah? The gift for Indonesia. Feminist secular, like you just name it, let's say Sita, for example. She was born from the feminist family, but the background was Muhammadiyah. So it very possible someone become a feminist secular, but has a background as NU or Muhammadiyah tradition. So the issue, the keyword is convergence between feminist secular and feminist Muslim. Yeah.
Hello. Even though I am a secular, I was born as a diplomat's daughter and born in India, conceived in Penang, born in India, and brought up in Europe. But one of my first books is Julia's Jihad. So, because Indonesia is one of the nations where religion, in this case Islam, is very important, like 96 or maybe even more, believe that religion plays an important role in society. So I have said on a number of occasions that Muslim feminists are at the forefront of the feminist movement in Indonesia. And even also at the forefront of progressive Islam. Once in 2009, actually already in 2002, I was a discussant at the this book discussion of Kiai Hussein Muhammad, the famous feminist Kiai, and it was about fikih perempuan, women's fiqh, and I was a little bit answered. I said, he looks like a Kiai, he dresses like a Kiai, and at that time I was suspicious of Kiais because Islam is famous for being discriminatory against women and that. But anyway, I discussed his book, and then in 2009 I actually went to Cirebon, and met him and actually had a chance to talk with him. And I asked him, how did you become a feminist Kiai? I said, well, you know, it's because I was dissatisfied and with the state of Islam because it's stagnant, it's not, it's stuck, not progressive, not moving ahead. And he said he got some suggestions. He got suggestions from some women, some feminists who to start with women. And I said, who? And he mentioned Liz. I said, Kiai, Liz was my research assistant when I did state Ibuism, and it's very true. She may have learned feminism from me, but I learned a lot about Islam and about village life, and also about walking on the side of sawah, of paddy field, because she just runs. And I'm, Liz, you know, because I'm not used to living in the village, and sometimes these very narrow bridges, and so. But it was real adventure. We lived in a rubber plantation with a shack made from thatched bamboo, and it was very windy. And we at night we had to put the food up because all the rats were running around. But it was amazing, an amazing experience, and that's when I felt that all intellectuals, Indonesian intellectuals who want to be called intellectuals, have to know about village life. So, anyway, back to Muslim feminism. Okay, 1990s. The May rapes, when there was Suharto stepped down and all that. And that is when secular feminists and Muslim feminists came together. I remember before that, when I spoke to Muslim feminists, Rahima, bukan Cici, Dani, yeah, she told me it's really hard being a Muslim feminist because from the Muslim community says, though, how can you be Muslim and a feminist? Whereas the secular Muslims say, how can you be a feminist and Muslim? You know, so it can't win either way. But actually, it's not true at all. And well, somebody like Musda Mulia, for example, you know her. And Nina once told me a story of how she was before she became a feminist, and she was how are you? You were very much, you were against feminism, no? In the beginning.
Yeah, well, at that time I was like rejecting the
Western.
I was questioning Rifat Hassan argument. She argued that men and women in Islam are equal, and I was like, oh, that's not my Islam. In Islam, is that men are superior than women.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's what you told me. So anyway, even though I am secular, but I insist on being secular because I'm Muslim. We say here Muslim KTP, identity card. But because I believe that is the basis for democracy. Because if like the founding fathers of the Republic did not want to make it an Islamic state, like for example, the first principle of Pancasila, our state ideology, is belief in God. And the Muslim groups wanted to add 7 words, which means with the obligation to practice Islam for Muslims. But the founding fathers refused that because it would have effectively have made Indonesia into a Muslim state. So that is why I insist on being secular. But at the same time, as I said, I acknowledge that Muslim feminists are at the forefront of the feminist movement in Indonesia, and not just the feminist movement, I think for the progress of Indonesia as a whole, because there are so many issues which have just remained the same, for child marriage, FGM, violence against, there's rape, in sexual violence, which happens in pesantrens, which is pretty scandalous. And now we are the most religious, one of the most religious countries in the world, but we are also the most corrupt. How does that work? So anyway, I would like to end my little statement by saying that I have a great appreciation and respect for Muslim feminists, and I encourage you all to continue being at the forefront of the struggle for feminists as well as for Indonesia. Thank you, Nina.
Assalamualaikum. I'm Lena Larsen. I'm from the University of Oslo. Been doing work with the Bonelli for the last 20 years here in Indonesia. There are 2 points I would like to comment on. The first is on KUPI. Last year, I was asking about the process towards the next Congress, because I'm very eager to know what will be the topic of the next Congress. And then I was informed, it's not known yet. Okay. KUPI, yeah. So how will it be known? And then I was explained the process, that in each local community, there will be discussions and with some conclusions. And the representatives from these local communities come together with the result of the local discussions. And based upon that, the agenda for the Congress will be decided. So it's a bottom-up, it's not top-down. And I think that can be said about Muslim feminism in Indonesia. It's not an elite phenomenon like it is in Europe or secular feminism. It's an elite phenomenon that is trickling down. And like it was in Egypt, the feminism, the women's question, it came from top towards the bottom. Maybe that is one of the reasons it has not got the legitimacy as it has here in Indonesia. So that is the first thing I learned about KUPI. And that's really, it's based upon, when you say it's based upon women's experiences, it's not like an abstract expression concept of women's experiences like we use as in theory, academic theory. No, it's a real experienced daily life and the needs of women on the ground, and that is brought up to the forefront. So that was the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned also, how are the fatwas from this Congress getting legitimacy? And I myself, I have done fatwa studies, so I'm in the politics of fatwas. And then I asked one of the brains behind the KUPI Congress, and she said, yes, what we are doing, we are discussing this with male religious leaders. And we have a very good relation, we are discussing it, and there is adab, there is the proper conduct of discussing these issues like in a fatwa process. So based upon relation and based upon this strategy to have good relations with male actors, male religious figures and authorities, that also help to support the authority of the fatwa that the women are presenting. And actually this is very unique, because in Europe, if I'm saying that I'm a Muslim feminist within my Muslim community, I will lose any position, any legitimacy. She says, she's dangerous. She will destroy. She's destroying the families. It's a little bit easier now. So I made a very deliberate choice for myself as a Muslim actor. I don't call myself a Muslim feminist. And my reason is this, is that if I say the word feminist, I'm putting myself in the margin of the consciousness of Muslim community. But if I present this as something normal, it's the most normal thing in the world, the equality between men and women, and just act upon that this is the most normal thing in the world, with adab, with good relations, and with kindness and all the virtues of the Muslim way of life, then it becomes in the center, in the Muslim mind, not in the margin. So I had a nice conversation with Zima Bir Husseini about this, and the Musawa movement, that is a global movement. She said to me that they have a new project now, and I said, so have you somebody with Indonesia with you? She said, no, no need. They are our lighthouse in the dark. So you have become like the forefront of all the women's rights with Islamic argument, and I think that is something to celebrate. And it would not be possible. One last thing, who was Professor Jørgen Nielsen at the University of Birmingham in the UK. He wrote a foreword to a book called To Be a European Muslim. And then he said in that foreword, where will be the tajdeed, the renewal of the Islamic tradition come from? He said, it will come from the margins, not from the core. And actually, geographically, Indonesia, in relation to the Arabic Peninsula, is very much in the margin. But the renewal comes from here. So thank you so much for all your efforts.
All right. Mungkin. Okay, thank you very much for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask as a male participant?
Male voice?
The percentage?
Okay.
Yeah, I think the number of our participants today represents the topic we discussed today, because the number of female participants more than male one, right? Then I'll try to ask, and I will thank Bu Nella and Prof. Nella, Prof. Peter Nella, and Prof. Nina, Prof. Nelly, and Prof. Nina for very inspiring presentation. I would like to ask you, not as male scholars actually, but when I discuss with Egyptian scholar talking about the niswah or feminism, the comment is, do you know the divorce rate is increasing as feminist and gender equality awareness grows? This is the reality in Muslim countries. And then the second one, maybe most of Indonesian students knows better about Fatima Merdisi, Amina Wadud, but maybe some of them neglect Lila Ablugat, for instance, as scholars who has a different perspective in feminism. When Lila Ablugat said Muslim women should not be seen only as victims who need to be saved. In her book, Do Muslim Women Need Saving? Yeah. So the last one, when we talk about the old issue, child marriage, for instance, but we have to try to move to the current viral issue about child-free. What do you think about it? Child-free. 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 We have child marriage, and I think this is an old issue, but current situation must have family or young family prefer to choose child-free or to have not baby. Yeah, I don't know, is it because of feminist effect or no? But this is my questions. Thank you very much.
All right. So we have to gather first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. So, singkat aja ya. So, my name is Andre. So, basically I'm living with cerebral palsy, and so I want to increase this discussion between a woman and disability issues. So, what is your point of view if a woman have or living with disabilities? So that's my question. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So, Prof, we only have around 15 minutes to discuss. So let's have discussion. Okay.
So do I understand the first questions was if the divorce rate is increasing? The first question I didn't quite understand. And then connected with that, being child-free, right? Yeah. And did you mean the divorce rate in Indonesia? Yeah. Well, I don't know if anybody has the numbers, because this is something you always have to look at the numbers, and I don't have the latest numbers. But I do know from earlier, information and books that in the old days, there was a very high divorce rate in certain areas of Indonesia, for example, because of child marriage, because people just started too young or too immature, and then later on realized I want something else, or because a man, just left his family. It's not always the fault of the man. So in a way, a higher divorce rate, because, the thing is, and it's connected with lower birth rate. These are trends that go up and down, and often can also be caused by societal events. And I think that we cannot black and white say it is because of modernity, it's because of feminism, it is because women are better educated. It's not that. Because in the end, who of you, let's check with the audience, who of you says, I don't want to find love, I don't want to be married? Raise your hand if you say that. I have never met anybody who did not want that, or at least wanted to try. And sometimes it fails, and sometimes it works, right? And now I think what we are looking at is we are looking at shifting patterns in societies, but we also are looking at a certain anxiety that goes around the world. We have climate change. We have, well, right now a war. We don't know if we still have a war in the Middle East, but we think we do. There is so much insecurity and things that are unsure, that are very difficult for young people to process, to handle. And so that's why, for example, a lot of people say, I don't want a child yet. But the thing is, once you start to wait, when is the right time? Because who has children in this audience? That once you have children, you can say, you never know when the right time is, because it's always a huge job, right? But I don't think it's just feminism. I think with feminism, what I observe, and I must say, I didn't read the literature, but because to me, these are things that need numbers. The number of successful marriages has increased because women are more aware of what they want and what they do not want, and maybe they marry a little later, right? And then they say, but because they know better, this is the kind of partner I would like to spend my life with. This was not the case 50 years ago. I look at my own parents. They did not have that choice. They just got married and then had us. And didn't quite like having children because it was a lot of work and they had too many and too quick a time. You see what I mean? So in a way, your question is complex because you're talking about a very complex situation that we are all facing in the current world. And it's not just only the West, it's also Indonesia. I see the same in Egypt. I see it all around the world. You know, now my experience of the world is limited. I've never been in China or to China in a lot of places, but what is to me very interesting is I live in America, I am from the Netherlands, I visit Norway, I visit Indonesia, I visit Egypt, and I see the same trends, and I hear young people talk about the same kind of worries, the same kind of concerns. Maybe they're culturally a little different. So I think that is what your question points at. And that's where I come back to the feminists, or whatever we call them, to the women of Asia, of NU, of Kupi. They try to find solutions. They try to find solutions, like what is going wrong? Like when Buli said to Kiai Hussain, when he said, well, we need to somehow, think about, how to, I don't know what he exactly asked you, but what is it with Islam? How can we improve living our lives as religious people? She said, why don't you look at women's issues, right? Because those were ignored. And when people started to look at them, what you call in English, all the boats are rising, because it means everybody benefits. You see what I mean? And so we always say, perfection is in heaven. Earth is never perfect. But what I see is a lot of people, and now I look at all of you, because I think you belong to that audience. You are trying to improve the world. And this comes back to the question of Mas Andri. What about disability? My book does not speak very much about it, but the projects of people paying attention, and it's not just paying attention to, it's not just about access and things, but paying attention to the plight, to the situation of people who have disabilities, whether it's mental, whether it's physical. That was also starting, because that was the next round. If you think in circles, you cannot talk about everything all the time, all at once. You cannot do that. But you can, one realization, one awareness leads to the next level. And now, as far as I can see, there are far more projects that take, the situation of disabled people very serious and feel that, well, there's a lot of work to do. And one of the moments that does anybody remember when there was an earthquake in Yogyakarta? What year was that? It was in the 90s. I had just left Indonesia. Or 2000s, early 2000s. And I remember a lot of people became disabled overnight, right? Something fell on their leg, and what happened then, and there were a lot of wheelchairs were sent from all over the world by charities. They were stuck with the Duana, with the customs, because they wanted money and nobody had the funds to release them. And nobody thought about how are these people getting around? They need a wheelchair. Why don't we make that the priority? And so that is the kind of things that created awareness and that woke people up. Yeah. And is that a little bit of an answer to your question?
Being a woman and being a disability at the same time, we have double discrimination. So,
Yes.
yeah, So I want to know what's your point of view for that situations, Prof.
I think there's many double discriminations in life. Being a woman and disabled, being a woman of color and being disabled, being a woman and being of color, being a man and being of color. There's many, many types of double discriminations. But the thing is that you have to look at the root cause first. And I think that is not gender-based only. You know, that because like when I say all boats rise, right? When women suffer in a certain situation, and that is one of the big findings of KUPI, and that is what Ibu Lena said. The KUPI leaders went and spoke to many different leaders of Islam in Indonesia. They included the MOE, they concluded Kementerian Agama, and so on, right? When women suffer, men actually suffer too. That is the issue, and that is what people often forget. When one group, you know, is poor, the other group also struggles with poverty. So this is, but the thing is, and this is where I think feminist theory comes in. That is why we also need secular feminist theory. We should never exclude that. That teaches us how things are connected. You know, we talk now about intersectionality and interdisciplinarity, because we learn how all things are connected. And it's almost like, you know, how it is like dominoes. Like if you put them up and you put one down, everything falls. And I know I have to stop, but an amazing example of that has nothing to do with Indonesia. And I don't know if you saw it. Who heard about the wrestling match in front of the White House last week? And that there was a wrestler. You know what a wrestler is? Everybody knows what that is, the word, a wrestler? Who doesn't know a wrestler? A very big man who won. He was asked to little interview, and he said blah, 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 blah. You know, it was mostly omong kosong, forgive me for saying that. And then he wanted the microphone back and said, Michelle Obama is a man. Yes, Michelle, what did he say? What did he say? What was behind that? A world of racism, a world of anti-women thinking, a world of creating suspicion against a group that you can say anything about them, you know? And this is very dangerous, that you can say anything about someone without looking at the facts, without looking at how things are actually connected, and so on and so on. So that was really something a lot of people didn't understand what was happening. But he presented an entire landscape, and it is that landscape that we cannot fight it, but we can teach a man like that. We should teach him that what he is doing is not just, you know, something that is his political idea, but it is destructive. It can be destructive to entire parts of society. You see what I mean? And the next thing he will do that about someone who's handicapped. And that has happened too, if you might remember, in public. Yes, well, I didn't want to say the T word, the Mr. T word, but he has in public said terrible things about handicapped people, you know, and it destroys. It destroys. And so this is where I come back to the book. And like I said, you become aware and you mention the problem. That is what Kartini did, right? Radhan Kartini. She mentioned the problem. She couldn't do anything about it. But after becoming aware, she named it in her letters. And then you start to think, what can I do about it?
I Googled just now, the divorce rate is between 30 and 35%, but that could be quite low actually, because there are also desertions and not official divorce. You know, so men who work in different places, they can have one wife here, one wife there. You know, it's not even, I mean, you know, it's not even legal. And So that's the traditional way, but there is also a trend now amongst young people to not marry, to just cohabitate, or as we say here, kumpul kebo. So I know personally some couples who do that, and it's becoming a little bit more acceptable. And I think there's this disillusionment with disillusion with marriage. So no, just so it's funny, you know. I have said a long time ago that the polarity will become greater, and it's become greater. In some ways, we are becoming more conservative, you know. I don't know what to call sexual violence in pasantrans. Is that conservatism or what is it? It sort of is because it has a certain order where girls are supposed to be there for the needs, including the sexual needs of men. But at the same time, also, society is becoming more progressive, you want to call it, you know, just if you want to call living together as progressive, meaning doing away with tradition, and whether it's religion or tradition, you know. So I'm not really caring about what people say, because usually in Indonesia people always say, oh, what will people say?
I am writing about the divorce one. I'm still responding to the previous comment, so we can discuss about that.
Yeah, thank you very much. To all our participants, this is really nice discussions. Even I'm not officially open the Q&A session, but lots of question already there. So because we ran out the time, maybe I just want to give some conclusion. This really remind me to our last discussion, Prof, actually, about the feminist consciousness is not really something we are born with, or it is not biological thing, but we have to learn, build, and nurture together, and we have to sustain together. It is about the awareness itself. So thank you very much to all participants, and we move to photo session. And also we have signing session. And I would like to remind all participants that we have the book behind with exclusively today with 20% discount. So don't forget about the 5 first purchases. Also will receive the mystery book. So thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
No, I think the 5-1 should. The 5-1 is the first coming here, but the registration will know who come first, and then they will receive the books from Kompas. Yeah. So whoever want have bought the book and want to have the signing with Ibu Nelly,